everyone. Welcome to CADAF Happy Virtual Hour number 14. Yay! I think we will need to plan something for, like, I don't know, like a what is a good number? 15 or 20? I don't know. We'll think about it, like a celebration. Thank you everyone for joining. We'll give it another minute or so, and then we are going to start. As usual, everyone is muted, but very welcome to use the chat to ask questions or to participate in the discussion. Myself and the team will monitor questions, and also a reminder that the Happy Virtual Hours are recorded. So if you prefer not to show your video, you can turn it off. But of course, we would like to see everyone. What time is it? It was, yeah, well, another minute and then we will start. I hope everyone is having a good summer time, by the way, wherever you are, wherever you're joining from today or this evening if you're in Europe. If you're in Europe, it's really hot, by the way, can I just say. I'm in Italy and it's just nice, but really hot. I think, Laura, you are muted, so can you try to mute yourself? Oh, perfect, you are. Great, I'm going to start. I think, and then, you know, whoever joins late, we'll just join wherever we are. I just want to welcome Christl Baur, head of Ars Electronica Festival, and Laura Welzenbach, the EU project coordinator for the festival. It's incredible having you here with us. And by the way, you know very little about me, but I'm a bit of a newbie in the realm of digital art. So it's incredible that the CADAF team sort of welcomed me as the moderator of these talks. But since we started them in April, I've learned an incredible amount on digital art. And today, I think will be a day where I'll learn even more. Because when I was researching about the festival, I mean, I could have done a month of research. There's so much that we can say about the festival. So
well, it's all a lot older than we are. Yes.
Exactly. But I was wondering, perhaps also if there are other newbies like me in the audience, if you could tell us a little bit about the history of the festival, and also your involvement in the festival now, of course. So seeing it through your eyes and a little bit of the history.
Of course, I'm more than happy. But first, thank you, Giulia. Thank you, CADAF team. Thank you, Elena, for the invitation. We are very happy and honored to be here with you. And well, let's have a cool chat. About the festival, well, I said it's already older than both of us are. The Electronica Festival itself was founded in 1979 by Hannes Leopolds Eder, who was at that time the chef of a local broadcasting station. And his initial idea was to do a festival for society, to do a festival that connects art technology for the benefit of society. And I think the coolest part of it is that everything that we do, and now we're doing programs way beyond the festival, that are still always in the spirit to connect art with technology and for the benefit of society. So his original plan, his original interest is still why we do all of this. And I mean, he was really a pioneer, he was really a visionary at that time, and still is. And it started with a first festival in Linz. I mean, Linz, we are sitting in Linz at the moment. It is a rather small city compared to many big metropoles around the world. We are in Austria. Linz itself is an industrial city. And in the 70s, actually the political department, they decided that they need something in order to change the city. So it actually, Ars Electronica started out of this need to develop the city, to make it livable again. And the tool for doing this, they decided that it would be art. But because Linz is situated in the middle between Vienna and Salzburg, Vienna as, of course, a cultural capital, and Salzburg, on the other hand, that is full with traditions, especially looking at Mozart and classical music. So how could Linz itself kind of stick out compared with those two cities? And they, especially Hannes Leopoldseder, always had this interest in computers, and at that time it was still very new. So the personal computer, the PC, was only introduced into, well, the first private households at that time. And his vision was to create something where artists start working with those tools, with computers, with the hardware in the first, at least. And he wanted to create that festival where always experts from all around the world. So it had from the very beginning this initial, this international focus. And at the same time, he wanted to address it to the local audience, to involve them actively, to not have a satellite conference that is only addressed to a few. So it was always the interest of bringing both together. And this was his genius that is the reason why we still exist, because as many other festivals that do purely something for, you know, a certain reason, at some point you vanish because you don't get funding anymore. I mean, funding in the art sector is not an easy thing. So because Ars Electronica was always trying to come up with something new and trying to continuously develop, to not kind of stay satisfied with what we have achieved, at least that's what I feel, that's the team that I have come to get to know here, that you're always looking for a challenge. You're always looking for something new in order to establish what we're interested in, connecting art technology with society. So this as a first kind of step back into history.
Obviously, I want to know more about your involvement in the festival now, but you know, when you say this, because we go back to 1979, I mean, and surely already then it had a look into the future, of course, but surely, you know, I guess the festival changed a lot throughout the years, and certain things have been added. One is the Ars Electronica Pre, obviously, but one of the things that I also wanted to ask you was the Future Lab and the role of Future Lab in the sort of development of Ars Electronica, for example.
So Ars Electronica over the years has based into a whole institution, a whole conglomerate of different parts of what the whole Ars Electronica is about. So 10 years later, or actually 8 years later after the festival was founded, there was this need of actually supporting artists in order to work with computers, with the technological tools, and that's why we created the Prix Ars Electronica. So the Prix is one of the columns that we are based on, and the Prix is dedicated, or is actually is now the most important art award in media arts, and it really shows the best practice examples of media art and media artists. So there are different categories, they alternate, they change, they're not always the same, because the tools that we use, that artists use in order to develop their works, they change, the focus changes, the interest changes. So it started in the beginning with digital music and computer animation, because that was what existed at that time. And then it evolved, and later onwards came hybrid art. Here we had, you know, sneak peeks into what bio art could be. We then came up with the category of digital communities, because beyond physical communities, there was suddenly this option of connecting on a digital level of connecting across the world. I mean, in the beginning, it was the first telematic projects that were realized within the festival here. So the festival is kind of the experiment. You can bring your artworks here. They don't need to be finished. They can be prototypes. You can kind of test your ideas on an international audience, get feedback, and kind of continue working on it. And then the Prix is this kind of best practice example. So once you've reached that level of including different perspectives, different practices, you have a chance of, well, hopefully getting an award in the Prix. And the Prix really stands for the time zeitgeist, so to speak. So if you go back in time and you see who were the winners at that time, it was WikiLeaks, for example, it was Wikipedia at one point, it was Pixar, it were people that are now, or institutions that are now world famous. And it was always a barometer of what will happen then in the next years. And then from the Prix, we felt that in order to actually to survive, to keep what we're doing, to get the funding to do what we want to do, we need a physical ground, a year-round possibility to show our projects. But the festival is only happening once a year for 5 days. And the Prix is an award for an international artist community. But then the first Ars Electronica Center, the so-called Museum of the Future, was created in order to establish a place where people around the year could meet, exchange, and present their works. And here, the focus is not so much on the international audience. It is really dedicated also to the local audience. It is very much focused on educational perspective also. And what we do here is, yeah, it is not like a Centre Pompidou or something where you just go because you go into a museum. Here you come in because you want to experiment, you want to research, you want to interact. We don't have a traditional museum. We have a very personal one. We are always getting exchange with the people that work there. They can show you the very latest tools that are happening now or that are on the market actually. And you can try them out yourself. You can develop tools, prototype things in order to understand a little bit, or actually to grasp also the problems of our digital society. And the Future Lab then is kind of the next step. Sorry for taking so long. The Future Lab is the next step when we saw that actually this ecosystem that we created here raises international interest. And people approached us and asking us, and can we kind of, do you have tools that we can use as well? Can we use what you are doing in a different, framework? And the Future Lab is a cross-disciplinary lab where we don't have just computer science, but we have members from all kind of disciplines that create new tools, that do cooperations also with regular business partners like Intel or big corporations in order to develop tools. And for us, it's essential that there are always artists involved. So we're not just working with scientists or researchers or educators, but we always have artists around the table to get their creative way of thinking, their ideas, and their way of looking onto our world. Yes.
Laura, before I ask Christl something about, she mentioned very briefly something about problems or issues in our digital society, and I have a question sort of about that. But perhaps, do you want to tell us a little bit about your role? Because I'd like to understand you more. You are the EU project coordinator. So what does that actually mean? What are the links of Ars Electronica with the EU projects?
So that's actually also super interesting. That was part of Ars Electronica history also for a longer time already. A collaboration with the EU also entails often to collaborate on a European level. So we have to build collaborations all over the EU with different organizations who work on similar themes and topics. So this is super interesting when it comes to exchanging ideas and also build a network that is beyond little Austria and is like clearly working towards issues and goals that we all think about. And the EU built a really awesome platform here and also a supporting system that allows us to collaborate together and really develop new programs that we can then implement in different places at the same time, simultaneously adjusting it to our local needs in that sense. So with the EU, we have very, very different programs. One strong point that I'm engaged in particular is education. Education is super on the top of the EU, of course, at the moment. And the EU projects allow us here to explore the informal learning spaces outside the classroom and really dig into new spheres there when it comes to public engagement.
Yeah. So quickly going back to the problems, because it was really interesting that when you said, sort of, when you mentioned, Christl, the problems of digital society. And last year festival, the title was Out of the Box, the Midlife Crisis of Digital Revolution. What midlife crisis? What was the reason? Are we going through
40? That might only be relevant in the Western society where midlife crisis is a thing. No.
Yes. No, not are we going through a midlife crisis, but so digital going through, or was it? And I'm sort of going ahead a little bit and maybe asking two questions in one. So was there a midlife crisis of the digital world last year, but has it changed now after we went through, you know, the last few months sort of with COVID, and actually has this turned into an opportunity? So two questions in one.
Yeah, it's actually very interesting to observe the festival topic last year now with the current status of the world. And I mean, of course, for us last year was a little bit humoresque, also playing with the anniversary of Ars Electronica. But on the other side, we deeply feel that, especially, and this is something that I have to quote because I was still too young at that time, but this utopian idea of the internet, of where everyone is free and equal, and kind of you can create your ideal world in there. I mean, we are all aware that this is not existing anymore. You have a lot of, you have a lot of possibilities online, but it became very clear that this is not just an utopian world. It is a very real world with a lot of different thresholds, but also threats and concerns. And what we wanted to discuss last year is really this move from automatic into kind of autonomic systems. And this, of course, is very close linked to this term of artificial intelligence. And for us, this term itself, or everything that is connected to what we kind of understand under this term, became a rather important one in the last years, because we feel that our society and our community is and will even much more be changing drastically. And I think what we see now in the last weeks and months, this jump into the digital, this forced jump into the digital, and especially, I mean, looking at, you know, grandmas and little children that so far never had the need to connect in digital spaces via Skype because they saw their nephews or nieces in real. Now they had to forcefully use Skype if they want to talk to them. And even if this is on a very basic level, but the need that suddenly huge societies just try to move online in order to find ways of communicating with each other makes a huge difference, because suddenly it's not the few or the small amount that are using those and that are accessing those digital tools, but it's suddenly everyone, or at least a huge part of our society. And here I'm not speaking about the Western society, but I'm really speaking about an international one. And with that, and with those opportunities always come, of course, difficulties. I mean, speaking about surveillance, speaking about data tracing, speaking about all those issues behind it. And the more we move into the digital space, the more we use it, the more we share, the deeper we need to understand how it works and how, and kind of define the role that we as humans want to have in that space, and how we can actually have the power to change something there, or to be aware of what is happening. And this is very closely connected to knowledge. Knowing what is happening gives you suddenly the power to say something, to judge whether you want to very easily use Facebook, but you know, I mean, it's a free decision to use Facebook, but you are aware what is done with your data. Or you just use your Facebook and you don't care whatever. And this is, it seems to be a very narrow line, but on the other side, I think it is the biggest step that we need to make now, to be able to judge and to be aware of what is happening, and therefore what we are opting in.
And also reclaiming tools.
Yes.
It's super important to be aware of what we as users, same as with capitalism in a way, what we could do when we organize each other. Also, again, the connection to society in a way.
Exactly.
I mean, thank you both, by the way. One of the theme of, in my sort of research, one of the themes of the exhibition also last year was human limitations, about limited humanity. Mm-hmm. And of course, I think perhaps this year has showed us how humanity is limited, of course, but also how, in this case, technology came to help on a more day-to-day level, like you said. You know, now everyone is using technology. You know, an 85-year-old person that I know very well started using Zoom from scratch. He had no idea how to use Zoom. So absolutely, technology can sort of help humanity overcome our limitations. But also, when I started learning more and more about new media art and digital art, and of course, I studied history of art and I love art, and I've always thought that art has an impact on society, physical art. But I've noticed how digital art actually can have even a bigger impact because of the experience and because of the fact that it's not linked necessarily to a physical world in a way. And that made me think about the responsibilities of the artist in a way, and the responsible use of these technology. Because perhaps now it really is the time for these artists to be supported and get out there, but use, you know, these technologies that are very delicate, virtual reality, artificial intelligence. Hi.
Yeah, we need to say hi.
So, no, and I was wondering, what do you think from your point of view about artists now really having the opportunity to use these technologies that are often not fully understood in a responsible way for social impact?
So it's definitely a super tricky question at the moment when it comes to conveying how tools can be used in the digital realm and how they can really affect this impact that you talk about, for example. Because it's still like a little a burden there when it comes to digital technology. We face this as well with the festival experience itself, and I think CADAF has also a great experience with this, because the experience of the physical space, the being in the same room, observing art, watching art, learning from art, this is definitely a different experience than a digital one. To highlight the opportunities that are there from digital arts that are able to travel so much further when it comes to distance, and also is able to reach an audience that has a little niche, for example, from a very, very small town, and no one would watch that work there, but I could find a huge community online and find people who are a fan of my work, or not my work in particular, but I could find these things now that build new borders in that sense, do not limit this space of exchange when it comes to digital art in general. However, it's still the challenge to think about engagement there. And I think there we are definitely now at the very, very interesting intersection now when it comes to thinking about something like an online experience and merging these ideas in that sense, that the physical space gives you some sort of physical experience when meeting other people. And now it's about like, all right, how can this experience, transfer of knowledge, transfer of ideas look like online without having this limitation of accessing it, because it can be very tricky.
Yeah.
I think
it's definitely more powerful. This opportunity. Yeah. Sorry, Christl. Yeah.
No, I just wanted to actually give a quick insight into this year's festival because I very much actually connect.
Oh, maybe we get there. I'm not
Okay,
sure.
No, but yeah, that's great, because that's gonna be my next question. Even I was gonna be like, right. So then, what are the next steps for this year? Because you know, the title is A Journey to Measure the New World, so it does link to what we were just saying.
Very much so, actually. And I mean, like all of us, we have been for weeks sitting at home, and it was actually precisely in that time when we usually start planning the festival. So I think until now, we planned probably 20 different festivals, depending on the time zone, on the certain time, on the certain tools, on the certain regulations. But what was always very clear, and that started actually with, we always have a jury session for the Ars Electronica, that it always, since 40 years, do in a physical space, because we feel that this human touch, this human connection in order to judge the artworks is the essential one. So this year we had to move it online. And we spent weeks in researching the tools that we felt could establish and enable this kind of connection. And it was different, but it went very well. And out of this experience, we started thinking about the festival and also what on a very personal level we miss most. And I think for many of us, it is this clash of new cultures. It is this clash of meeting other people, of exchanging, of being in different places. And that's how this idea of the journey came along. And on the other side, Linz during the festival is a completely different Linz than during the rest of the year. So the city here has 200,000 inhabitants, citizens. And during the festival, we have more than 100,000 visitors. So you can imagine what Linz looks like during the 5 days of the festival. But it means that usually everything is very much centralized here. Everyone from all around the world comes here. And as this is no option this year, and we still have so many interesting partners with actually a lot of different opportunities, we decided that we would, for the very first time actually in our history, make a decentralized festival. We started testing this out with the first partners in April, telling them kind of about this idea of not just organizing a festival in Linz, but asking them to do their own Ars Electronica festival, for example, in Barcelona or in Tokyo or in Sydney. And it was...
Are you talking about physical spaces also?
I'm talking about physical space.
Yeah.
Of course, this limit of the, I mean, Corona limits the physical space depending on where you are at the moment.
Yeah, yeah.
So thinking about Chile and our partners there is not a physical space that is accessible at the moment. So they will do their programs online. But wherever there is a possibility of meeting in the physical space, we ask our partners to create actually hybrid events that happen in the physical space, and events that happen in the online space could also be the same one that are then broadcasted, or where those new tools come in that link physical with online spaces. And I will give you in a minute the word, but what I just wanted to say, and this is still something that causes goosebumps on my arms, that the reaction from the partners was incredible. All of us immediately jumped into the boat, saying no matter what their own situation was at that point, but they were like, okay, let's do this. And we went through a lot of hard times in trying to do that, but this trust from the partners, from the international arts community, and on the other side, the strength that we see and the power that art has through this network that it builds if you start working together, I think is that this pushes us to work literally 24 hours at the moment to develop this program.
No,
So there's a physical location also in Linz, right? The Kepler's Gardens.
There is. So we have our own festival here, but like any other event around the world, it is really dedicated to the local audience. We feel that it's our responsibility as a cultural facilitator that in times of crisis, in those uncertain times, we need to support the artistic and the cultural community here on site. We are responsible for our own location and our cultural neighbors in the end.
Yeah.
Exactly. We are, of course, but it becomes much more necessary now.
Yeah. But in a way also like, because of the restrictions, simply also narrowing down the program and have these multiple players and the decentralized character is like really amazing. And also having new venues that we can explore through that, and giving different platforms and more space to these things that can breathe differently in that setting actually.
No, and actually, I mean, usually the focus is on the international audience. I mean, the festival happens in English. This year, the festival happens in German, especially here, the local one.
Like
exactly.
Right. It's okay. Right. So I will not come to Linz, even though I can try.
No.
This year is not the year to visit the festival because I won't understand it. I'll maybe. Well, CADAF is also participating, by the way, for those who don't know. So I think it's good to mention, but I watched the online program in English then, I guess.
Of course, we will do it in English, but it is just interesting to know, or kind of to see suddenly that English, if you do it for the local audience, becomes not so important.
No, not so interesting, yeah. Yes.
We'll do it still in English also, but it is a completely different understanding also of what the local community is interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually triggered quite discussions of how and what kind of festivals we actually wanted to do locally, because many of, especially the academic conferences, are not forcefully interesting for the local audience, but much more for the international one.
Yeah.
Also, universities and things are still on vacation at that time, so the academics of the city are still out of town in a way.
Well, we hope that they make it to the festival, but yes.
Of course.
But funnily enough, you touched upon something that I wanted to ask you both, because one of the things also that I noticed in the last few months and changes in the art world in general was a lot of joint forces to overcome, isolation, to support each other, even to overcome, financial distress. Even it doesn't really matter why, but I definitely saw a lot of collaborations in the, I know it's wrong, but I call it the more traditional art world or art market, like Sotheby's joining with galleries. That was a first. But also in the digital sort of realm and space, and because CADAF also is a strong supporter of new media art and artists, and there is so much potential. There's still a lot more to do. I was wondering actually what you felt about, and you mentioned we're collaborating now with organizations around the world. So in a way, these joint forces is it a sort of trampoline, like a launch, a trampoline to launch even further new media art and everyone in new media art. So it's actually, COVID turns out to be a positive thing for digital arts, since or new media art that encompasses more. What are your thoughts on this?
I would in general hesitate to say COVID is a good thing for anything. Just because I can't. did so many brutal things.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point.
However, I think the amazing thing that happened now, also at the festival, for example, the discussions are just like put to another level when it comes to this online idea in general, right? Like people are fascinated by it on one hand, and already after such a short time, already also a bit tired of it. So it's like thinking about how can these new engagements online look like without over exaggerating screen time. It's like simply exaggerating to sit in front of a screen if you work, and then your spare time is also sitting in front of a screen. I mean, my spare time was that before already, but I feel it now even more because it was just more of sitting in front of a screen. So what I find interesting now is what happens to these tools online and what happens to interfaces that we use, that they become more interactive, engagement, even like the word is like definitely very present lately as well, like the gamification idea. So building these experiences now, that is like definitely something that I find super, super interesting. And that is also something that happens in the arts already for a very long time. And now kind of like explodes in a way because it has this amazing hybrid component there that is just, yeah, it blew my mind because I didn't see it in that beauty and in that overall presence yet.
I don't know if
Actually, we just got an interesting comment, sorry, that people are getting kind of bored of, you know, things that are not well organized online. And I couldn't agree more. And, you know, this just moving something online that before was supposed to happen in the real world is, it also, in my understanding, not a very suitable approach. Because if you do a panel, for example, in a physical space, you have a completely different attitudes towards that speaker. You're much more forgivable if things go wrong. You choose to be in that space because you want to dedicate the time to that topic, to that audience, to that speaker. But online, that's a different thing. I mean, online you have distraction times a million, and in order to create content or to create programs that stick out, I think we all really need to consider of what does it mean to do something online, of how can we use the tools that we have in a way that they make sense, that they serve its purpose, so that you're not just, you know, and that's not meant against anything that we're doing now, but that you're not just doing the 100th Zoom call, but sorry, but
they can be good. Like
exactly, it was not supposed to be against it, but what I want to say is that really everyone should think about what you're moving online. The conference and in the physical space for 1.5 hours makes sense because it's cool to see those people, to interact with them. Online for 1.5 hours, come on, who's gonna watch that the full time?
I mean, it depends, right?
Yeah.
It's also exactly, again, this niche thing.
Yeah.
If I find my niche that wants to know this, then you get the engagement. If you wanna like reach new audiences with it, there is maybe some things that can be tried out, but it can be, they should be now an option or should be considered now. So it's not that these things don't work.
No.
They work for your existing audience, but if you think about engagement and society as a bigger thing and not only the media.
a new audience, a new engagement, and sort of,
and also a critical approach to the tools. So what is, I'm not using this example of a panel, but what is a panel supposed to be? How can an interaction happen then online? How can it differ of what we are used to do, of what we kind of know? And I think this is, it's necessary to kind of challenge our understanding of transferring the actual real into the online spaces.
but I do, when you said something, when you said, I don't think COVID is, I don't want to say that COVID is good.
No, not at all.
Right, I think there was definitely poor maybe choice of words on my side. mean good in the sense like, yeah, let's have more of these, not at all. But in a way, how you can learn from a challenging experience and actually turn it into something positive to convey the message. And of course, in art, our message is that in this case, art and technology can be a good combination to think about the future, to think about our society, to think about social impact. With art, we obviously cannot go into hospitals or, help in that respect. But certainly for me, also in the past few months, yes, you're absolutely right. There has been a little bit of online fatigue, but also the things that I have discovered, new artists, for example, perhaps I would not have had that opportunity or that chance sort of beforehand. And I think perhaps before we sort of open up to the audience and have some questions, in your thoughts then, how does the future of art look like in your opinion, now that we are at this stage where we are seeing that the world is trying to go back to normal, but are we going to go back to the way we were in a way, or has it definitely changed? And all of us operating in the art world, whether as artists or as curators, management or whatever, do we need to prepare for a different world?
So where did I want to start there?
And this is your I'm asking for your own thoughts, of course. I mean, you're not I know that you cannot predict the future, but what is your feeling? What do you think?
So I think in general the overall nice thing that happened, the digital arts was like fighting for more, for being taken serious for a long time now. And it was already getting better in many, many ways because big institutions also took it on and do have their digital collections and things like that. And now people realize that this is also an exciting platform to try out. More people from a traditional art background try out now to build hybrid works that also have a digital component to it. It's also super interesting. We have a curator who got invited to the Gallery Spaces program who did not work with online programs at all. And it's her first tryout to just think about what her traditional experience could now look like on the web. So I think it's an interesting time now that more people are keen to try out new things. And that will definitely bring new ideas and new innovations. Because if these people work together with the people who have already like super loads of experience with the digital world, this will be like a really nice ground where this understanding of like how engagement can look like and how I can reach an audience who is not like super keen on digital art, because there's a lot really, really cool stuff out there.
Yeah, we are forced at the moment to break down the barriers, to kind of overcome our own fears of that for many is very relevant, of moving into or doing something in the digital. And if, as you mentioned before, there's this chance for new media artists, but with new media art, we not forcefully understand something purely digital. It's actually very often a hybrid of physical installations or physical artworks and technological or digital tools. But if the validation system of an artwork that consists of so many different things that are not very easily understandable somehow, that sometimes need a lot of knowledge also from the audience, maybe have the possibility of kind of reaching a new audience, as Laura mentioned before, because now you have a sneak peek into a different reality. You have an idea of what can happen and what exists also there, that you're much more open to also what, other things that are developed within those realms. And I have a very good feeling about that, actually, that, you know, and I'm not talking about purely web-based art, but really about interactive art, about all different kinds of art that use digital and technological tools, that we, by being forced of trying out, of trying new things, and even not forcefully technological, but kind of being in a situation where there are a lot of uncertainties, where you have to look beyond your own kind of plate, you're beyond your small home, that our world also gets courageous in now trying other things, because you feel that everything is good that it's happening, but you need to move forward in order to do something. And this hope that very often now is kind of outspoken, that Corona helps us to overcome some of our problems because we are forced to think about them. I think this is actually very dangerous, because it suddenly gives us the feeling that it will just happen, like, you know, talking about ecological crisis or something like that, but or climate crisis. But it will not just happen. We still need to fight for it. But we maybe have now an advantage, because people have seen that things can happen very quickly if we all agree to it, whether in the positive or in the negative way. And going back to where I started, that gives the artists that at least we work with, I think, a platform of where they are much more understood, of where they have the chance of giving us an insight into their thoughts and ideas, and that are of social relevance. And we are in the need of ideas in order to survive the next decades.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with you both, actually. Sorry, I was just reading a little bit of the comments in the chat. Claire from the audience asked a question. I think it was a sort of an open question for anyone, and they just said, could you describe an online experience that uses the tools that we talked about, so technological tools, in a meaningful way? Perhaps it's something that you've experienced.
Yes, of course. Actually, the Golden Econ communities. When
CADAF is, we won't mention CADAF, but CADAF.
I wanted to mention CADAF as the second point, but still the first point is actually really the Hong Kong movement. I mean, we awarded it now in the digital community, but what each individual Hong Kong resident did in order to actually protest, to go into the streets, they organized their protest with digital tools, with sometimes rather simple ones, Bluetooth, in order to stay anonymous, in order to connect with each other, in order to organize very spontaneously different meetings. And you don't always need to reinvent the world new, but there are very easy tools out there that can be used for very meaningful ways.
And CADAF.
And CADAF, sorry.
What you describe is Hong Kong. Yes, I mean, it's definitely a different use of technology, but it has a very deep meaning. CADAF, we are consciously trying to support through technology, new media art, and educate and do everything we can to bring together different players of the art world, whether it's digital art or not, but it doesn't really matter. However, technology has enabled also CADAF in the last few months to certainly reach out to wider audience, and potentially sort of new audience as well. And when I asked you, obviously, what you thought about the future of the art world and how finally technology can support the evolution of the art world, and I do believe that it will now be a hybrid, and it will be even more sort of international. whether we're coming from a traditional world, you know, galleries, art fairs, or auction houses, or you're already working in new media art. It's never just going to be a physical experience. It will always also be online, for sure.
I do think CADAF already, like in a very short time, thought about like how this experience of an art fair in that case can travel to the digital. And I think it's incredible what people came up with, and CADAF as well, to think about what is their characteristics and how can we at least start working towards this goal. And it's really incredible what these guys put together in, or yeah, you guys put together in that short time. This is just, yeah, super impressive, super impressive. And that's also the exciting thing about exploring these new tools. What people did in a very short time actually shows also like how we can travel very fast here.
Just reading a comment from, you know, by one of our sort of audience, Darcy. She says, oh, you need to get over the oh wow factor, compare quality of the art created using digital technology with what is coming out of these sort of new ad hoc community. Would anyone say that anything created you know, by an artist in this community is better than a great Cézanne painting? Artists need to focus on making great art to the best of their ability and not trying to save the world. Yes, I mean, thank you, Darcy. I mean, I think this is a bit of a strong comment. I mean, nobody's saying that art is trying to save the world, but it can certainly deliver a message. And you know, oftentimes we as human beings have emotions that we struggle to perhaps share. And artists sometimes give us that chance. They share these emotions for us, and we look at a painting, whether it's a Cézanne or it's a new media art piece, and you know, something clicks and we feel a connection, and that's an emotional connection, and it makes us feel heard. For example, it makes us feel that someone else is sharing or feeling the same as we are. And I think that is the power of art. And, you know, I believe this is true for all art and all artists. Anyway, so this is why we and Ars Electronica continue to do what they do. And, you know, hopefully for many more years is, yeah, I think is to allow that connection. For those who are not artists and sometimes struggle to express what they feel.
Yes, but may I add something? And I mean, no doubt about Cézanne, but Cézanne or any other avant-garde artist have been the visionaries of their time. And it does not matter what, at least in my understanding, it does not matter what tools you use, whether you do an acrylic painting or whether you use a digital tool or something else, in order to express your thoughts. And adding to this, there are of course artists that are not very well prepared for the digital realm, and that's not necessary. There is no interest of whether us, and I'm surely speaking also for CADAF, that to limit it down to purely technological or digital art, but to be able to use all kind of tools and not differ among them anymore, but to really not separate between what is contemporary art or, you know, traditional art or media art, but actually to allow, and I think that it's an over criticism of actually the art audience, that we need to allow the artists to freely choose what kind of tools they want to be able to express their thoughts and their concerns, and not judge them according to painting or drawing or whatever, video.
Yes.
And why are we not open to that? I mean, come on, we should overcome our borders.
Yes, no, I agree. I wish we could get away a little bit as well. And I am also guilty, you know, every time saying, oh, traditional art and digital It's art, yes.
According to
we use it now also in these kind of situations because of focus. But really, yes, we should say it's all art, regardless of what you use. And yeah, the artists have experimented with the tools that they had available at the time, always, and it's all art for sure. I mean, it's only sort of 2 minutes away, and so I won now. So I urge anyone from the audience that might have questions for Christl and Laura to obviously write the questions. Otherwise, I think we've kept them enough. But thank you very much. Oh, and also, I'm sorry, we didn't say the dates of the festival. I mean, I was like, oh, so I'll see you.
Okay. Join us for the festival. It's September 9th until the 13th. And please have a look out on our website. In the beginning of next week, we will announce all of our international gardens there. So maybe you're lucky and there is actually a physical garden of Ars Electronica happening somewhere around your place that you can go there in physical. But if not, or additionally, join us online. We have created actually literally a 24-hour program for 5 days on a lot of different channels. There will be TV channels, there will be workshops, there will be exhibitions, there will be online digital tools. I'm stopping now.
Yeah, there will be many, many amazing things and many amazing Mozilla hubs also from Colorado, because I see Emily there.
Yes,
exactly. Come on a journey with us to the different worlds, to the different areas, to the different cities and places. And I hope you have a good time. It is really, if some of you have been in Linz before, it is all those different things now in many different places around the world.
Many different places,
yes.
Which is fantastic. And also, yes, CADAF will be there. We'll have a
exactly.
Amazing.
This wonderful
Thank you. Thank you again for sharing your time and your thoughts and your experience and your know-how. It's been fantastic. Thank you. Thank you everyone for listening and joining again.
Thank you so much.
It was really a pleasure.
Thanks, CADAF.
Bye.
And if you want to talk or tell us something. Thank you. Bye-bye.